So Jen Yttri is a current fellow at NSF in the Directorate of Computer and Information Science and Engineering. As a part of her position, she is interested in cross-agency coordination and ways to communicate the importance of science research and broader impacts. Prior to working at NSF, Jen was a senior fellow at the National Research Center for Women and Families, where she directed their policy program on antibiotics and working on drug and medical device regulation by the FDA. You heard a little bit about that. She received her PhD in immunology from Washington University in St. Louis. Tonight, she very nicely asked, so what does your science mean to me? Jen.
Like Andrea, I also have to put the disclaimer out there that the words that come out of my mouth tonight are my own and do not represent either AAAS or my host agency, the National Science Foundation. But what I want to talk to today is how do we think about science and what it means beyond the bench, especially to those who are not scientists. So as scientists, we know that it's very important that we speak about our science in an articulate and approachable manner. But oftentimes, science sounds like jargon and gibberish and doesn't really relate to anyone outside of our field, let alone a non-scientist, the general public, Congress. There are many tools out there now that can help scientists become effective communicators. There are training institutes and workshops, books, communications professionals to help. But maybe if we're trying to think about broad-scale changes, we think about what really matters most to scientists. Money. Specifically, grants to fund that research that they are so passionate about, like funding from the National Science Foundation. Now, I know this is a policy talk, and when AAAS Policy Fellows, such as myself, walk through these doors, we're expecting opportunities to write talking points, memos, briefing documents, maybe answer requests from Congress. But most of us don't do that. I think of NSF as policy light, but that doesn't mean policy is entirely absent. In fact, the policy that most of us and most employees at the National Science Foundation will encounter is the merit review criteria, the policies and procedures that have been outlined by which we review proposals that come in and choose which ones are worthy of funding. And NSF takes its role as a steward of taxpayer dollars very, very seriously. So much so that when it was founded, this is its mission: to promote the progress of science, to advance national health, prosperity, and welfare, and to secure the national defense, and for other purposes. So, in 1950, when it was first created, it had to determine how it was going to choose which proposals were worthy of taxpayer dollars. And so it created a criterion that composed of two kind of parts. One, it evaluated the scientific impact of the research, and second, how this research may improve a societal goal. And the language has changed since 1950. In 1997, it was revised to two very broad categories, one being the scientific or intellectual merits of the research, and the second, the broader impacts, the benefits to society. In 2013, 5 review elements were added, and these are how these two criteria will be measured. The challenge at NSF is that the definition has to apply to all of the research that is funded. And we all know that the merits of material science research cannot be equivalent to behavioral research, or geology doesn't have the same benefits to society as genetics. The challenge is, though, that all NSF-funded research has some merit beyond the value in the bench. It's up to the PIs to be able to peer into the future and figure out what those benefits might be and articulate them in their proposals, like Google. When I showed up at NSF in fall of 2013, I knew very little about this process. I took the Merit Review Basics training course that all program officers are required to take, and quickly realized that the definition of broader impacts across the scientific community is very, very different. So I thought, okay, I can tackle this. I'll do what anyone in DC would do. I'll make a working group. And this working group is now in existence at NSF and consists of AAAS Policy Fellows and a number of Einstein Fellows who are teachers placed at the National Science Foundation. And we all share this interest in broader impacts of science. Now, we've been working very hard for the past year, first learning the history of broader impacts at NSF, then understanding what was the rationale behind the 2013 revisions, and finally, how is this policy being implemented across the foundation? We've shared our research with NSF leadership and at their Broader Impact Summit, and are going to share it again at the AAAS annual meeting in February. And we've become very inspired by a study done in 2011, which really showed that while broader impacts is thought to be a very important component of research, the definition is very vague and clearly understood, and there are questions about how this is implemented both in the review process and in proposals that PIs submit. So we created a writing guide, and this writing guide is a series of thought-provoking questions aimed to help researchers think about the broader impacts of the research as stemming from the intellectual merit or activities that they do in partnership with that, and to plan for the resources and expertise they need to either accomplish these and evaluate them. We're currently evaluating our document across all of the directorates at NSF, hoping that we can find something that, of course, applies to all of these very different research communities, and it's been a very interesting anthropological study, let me tell you. So our next step is that we're hoping that once it's internally vetted, we'll be able to take this document to the PIs. And we're hoping to work with a group called Bionic. They're the Broader Impacts and Outreach Network for Institutional Collaboration, yes. And these are broader impacts professors across the US who are interested in helping their PIs. And the goal really is to start thinking about science not as this series of technical jargon, but really as the transformative and creative ideas that are impacting our daily lives and our sense of the world. And maybe, just maybe, it will lead to what scientists really want: more funding. Thank you.